Hi SBA, today we have the pleasure of being joined by our guest Miss Samaria Cardinal. She is from Calgary, Alberta, and she is of Indigenous Métis descent herself. Her father was a survivor of the residential school systems, and she'll be speaking to us a little bit about how his experiences affected himself and as well as her own life.
So we'll start off with the first question, which is, could you please give us a little bit of perspective into your story and your relationship with your Indigenous identity?
Well, I was very lucky that I was brought up by a father who was very into his culture. He was very traditional. He's a lodge keeper and learned from many teachers. He is at the current time considered an elder in the community. Um, and but I didn't realize what I had and what I was witnessing and what I was taking a part of. I just took it for granted. And I was brought up in an environment that was extremely abusive. So I ended up running away from home at 13. And I threw all that away. And I thought that was all part and parcel of what was wrong with me. So I totally deleted it from my life. And I went around from that point forward. People would ask me what I was because they would say, you look a little different, like, what are you? Oh, I'm Middle Eastern. Oh, I'm French. I would, come up with a lot of other things to say. I would never say I was Indigenous because I actually became ashamed of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of issues in my life, and I was very mixed up, and nothing was helping. I was trying to seek help from medical institutions, from all sorts of people, and nothing was helping me. And then I realized that I needed to go back to my culture. And when I went back to my culture and I fully accepted who I was and I became proud in who I was, then I started this healing process. And I felt better about who I was, and I start learning the ways again and becoming connected with people in my community and seeing the pride there that is inherent in being Indigenous. And I started feeling a lot better with myself because I didn't hide who I was anymore. And for me, it's been a real source of strength and healing to go back to what I was. So I am feeling a lot better now.
No,
Yeah.
that's really great to hear. Yeah, no, I heard I heard your father is a very accomplished architect, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's a nice segue into how 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 the culture can accept a professional facade, but not delve into the trauma that he experienced as a child. And I was wondering if you could touch a little bit as to how your father's experience in residential schools affected himself, and as well as ultimately you.
Well, he was in a residential school for 7 years. He was the oldest of 8 children. And in one way, it was really nice is that there he developed an appreciation for the arts. He learned how to play piano, he learned art, he learned a lot of really amazing things. But at the same time, he was separated from his parents. He was subject to abuse. And when you're in those residential schools, you weren't allowed to speak your language. You weren't allowed to even talk to your brothers and sisters. You were basically a number. You had no one to give you love or even care for you. So a lot of the children ended up running away. Some ended up freezing. A lot died. They weren't given proper nutrition. They didn't receive proper medical care. It was very bad. I remember my auntie saying when she also was in the residential school, that when she went in, they threw her in a bath and they scrubbed her because they thought she had lice and she was dirty. They were not dirty. If they were boys, they cut their braids. To Native people, hair is a symbol of the spirituality and it's very sacred. And they cut those braids off. They would put soap in their mouth if they spoke their language. Some had pins stuck underneath their nails pulled out. They were locked in cages. There were medical experiments done on them. There were all sorts of horrific things. Some girls were raped by the priests, and when they had their babies were killed. Or there is an instance that I heard of where a girl saw a nun throw her baby live into a furnace, and she had to watch that. So they went through some horrific, absolutely horrific things. My father, and also because he was in there for so long, he did not learn how to parent. He did not learn how to interact with people appropriately. And so this has affected his whole life. And when he had me, when he was with my mother, he didn't know how to interact with women appropriately. He was very abusive to my mother and to us children. My mother eventually ran away. She took my two brothers and ran away from him because he was so abusive to her. She knew she couldn't get away with the three of us, so she just took my two younger brothers. She thought I was the strong one and that would be able to survive. Mm-hmm. So she got away, and I was left with him, and it was really, really bad. I was subjected to extreme abuse, all kinds on a daily basis. I had a stepmother that did not want me there. And it got to the point where I just had thoughts of just murdering them every day. And that's not me. You know, I was a child. I didn't know what to do. I was locked in a situation. And so at 13, so I wouldn't hurt anybody, I ran away. Mm-hmm. And so for years, I saw my father as the big monster in my life. That all the issues that I had with mental illness, addiction, everything that came up in my life was all his fault, that he was the monster. And people would show me, you know, news clips of him or things, you know, because everybody knew who my father was. And I would like, oh yeah, whatever. You know, you don't really know him as a person. Because you see this persona that's in media and stuff all the time. Exactly. And I just didn't want to see him as a human being. He was a monster. And then a few years ago, I had a child, and my child was getting older, and I had messed her up too, because of what was passed to me, that intergenerational component. Yeah. And I changed a lot. I did a lot of healing. I did a lot of work on my life. And I wanted her to forgive me. This is hard.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. I wanted her to forgive me because I was changing. I was growing. I was becoming a better human being and taking away all the stuff that was given to me. And I thought, how can I ask my daughter to forgive me when I can't forgive my father? Mm-hmm. Because he's changed too. Mm-hmm. And he is what society made him. This is what the system did to him. They created him, and he's fought his whole life to heal and to change. And I've connected back with him, and I realize now that he did the best he could. He was trying to survive too. And he picked up some very bad coping skills and ways to walk through this world. And he spent his whole life trying to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. And when I sit down with him now, he's the first to comment how sick he was and how he's still trying to get over what happened to him. So seems to be a lifelong process with this. But as I can see in my journey, I'm better than he was. And I can see in my daughter, yes, I did pass a lot to her, but she's a lot better than I was. And I can see in my grandchild, my daughter has learned parenting skills. Mm-hmm. My daughter has learned a lot of really wonderful things. So my grandchild is being brought up beautifully. I can see in his eyes the pride of who he is. He doesn't carry any of that stuff that I carry.
There you have it, SBA. Samaria shared some incredibly meaningful and useful anecdotes and advice for all of us to follow. I hope that you've learned a little bit more about Indigenous history and the impact of residential schools intergenerationally through the First Nations people, Métis, and Inuit people of Canada today. Thank you.